Chapter 12 of The Calling by Elsie Pye. Talia. I wanted to help this village, but when Alon announced we would be stopping our pursuit of the kidnappers in order to help, I had strong reservations. Nadav, Hafsa, and Raf joined us when Alon decided we were going to stay. We found the village's only tavern, and Alon and Gil talked with the owner while the rest of us sat around a circular table. The place was barren besides us, but Hafsa and Nadav both had their hoods up, hiding their faces. I watched as the owner and merchant kept a healthy distance from them behind his bar. Random travelers weren't common, and the expression on the owner's face told me he wasn't comfortable with us being there. However, he began to relax, and by the time Alon and Gil walked away, he was smiling. I wasn't sure that what was said, but Alon announced to everyone that we would be staying at the tavern while we found a way to help this village. I wanted to help this village, which we found out was called Hatli, but our priority had to be stopping the kidnappings and saving Jules. We didn't have time to help this village right now. If we stopped, we would be letting them get further ahead, or worse, allow them to take someone else. Alone, I want to help this village too, but Jules and the other young women must come first. It seemed like I was the only one who believed Alon was being unreasonable. I understand that this decision does not make sense to you. You are always welcome to leave our party, but this is how we do things. Crossing my arms, I sat back in my chair. I was furious at this point. But there was no way I could find the kidnappers on my own. He continued. There are always people in need. If we say no to helping this village, do you think there won't be any deaths by the time we get back here to help? You saw the villagers. Some of them won't last a couple of days, let alone a week. Who are we to judge whose lives are more important? All life is sacred and precious. These lives are in front of us now, so we will answer the call to help them. I wanted to argue with him that Jules was more important, but it wasn't. Her life just affected me the most. I reluctantly gave Alon a small nod, showing him that I understood, and pushed back tears that threatened to escape. My greatest fear was that when we finally found the kidnappers, we would be too late, and Jules wouldn't be there. The owner confirmed what we already knew. An illness has spread through the entire village. It started a few days ago and spread quickly. The village has only one family of healers. My mouth dropped. One family? That couldn't be possible. You're saying that for the entire village of Hatli, there is only one family of healers? The family we already met? Yes, Alon confirmed without any change in his expression. Tomorrow we will go and offer our services to the family. Alon continued to talk more about ways we could help the family, even though we weren't all healers. I tried not to give too much insight. The last thing I wanted was for them to ask questions about how I knew so much about the ways of the healers. I was thankful that Hafsa was whom they turned to for confirmation of ideas. Around midnight, Alon advised us all to go get some sleep. We would need to be up before dawn to get started. Adira and I were sharing a room, which would be interesting. It was simple with 2 small cots, a water basin, and pitcher on the dresser, and 1 small window. I got to the room before Adira and picked the bed on the left. A musty smell filled the air, and a heavy layer of dust coated the dresser. I wasn't going to complain, though. I was thankful not to be sleeping on the ground tonight. I placed my bag on the ground and sat on the cot to take off my boots. My feet were throbbing from all the walking, and some of the blisters had opened up. The door swung open, and Adira came in without acknowledging my presence. As she stalked to her cot, I acknowledged her lean, muscular frame. She would be able to take me down with 1 hand behind her back. She was intimidating and beautiful, which only added to the intimidation. Like Gil, she had an olive face with soft features and flawless fair skin. She looked in my direction, and I felt the need to say something since I had been openly staring at her. I said the first thing that popped into my head. So, you and Gil are twins? I mean, obviously you're twins, since you look alike and all. I've never met twins before. Why couldn't I stop rambling? She took off her cloak and boots, not reacting to my embarrassing attempt at making conversation. My cheeks were on fire, but I still couldn't get my mouth to shut up. You look similar, but your personalities couldn't be more different. I mean, Gil is loud, playful, and likes to draw attention to himself, and you seem to want the opposite, which isn't a bad thing. Is there a point to your rambling? Adira asked without glancing in my direction. No, well then, I suggest you get some sleep. Adira climbed onto her cot and rolled toward the wall, making friends fast. Great job, Talia. I lay down, hoping sleep would take me away from my humiliation. Adira was gone when I woke up, and relief overcame me. I couldn't imagine facing her alone right now. Even thinking about what I said last night made my cheeks flush. I walked over to the water basin and freshened up a bit before I headed downstairs. They all occupied the same table we sat at last night. I was the last one awake, again, and the owner had already served everyone some sort of porridge. I grabbed the open seat next to Eaton and alone. Glad it wasn't next to Adira. I wasn't brave enough to face her yet. Eaton slid an extra bowl of porridge in front of me, dipping his head with an all-encompassing smile. I returned the smile as I brought the bowl closer to me. How'd you sleep, Talia? Gil asked with a mouthful. I slept great. It was the first night in months I'd slept through the whole night. My sister didn't snore too loudly, did she? Gil teased. Before I could respond, a biscuit flew into the air straight toward Gil's face. Ow, Adira, be careful. You wouldn't want to damage this masterpiece. Gil chided as he stroked his chin, then took a bite out of the biscuit. Adira rolled her eyes. Ahem. Alon drew our attention. Hurry up and finish your breakfast. We will all head over to the healing house to talk with the family. I shoved a spoonful of thick porridge into my mouth. The porridge scourged my throat as I swallowed. Ignoring the pain, I continued to eat as quickly as I could. In between spoonfuls, I caught Raph's eyes on me. His eyebrows lifted. I continued to shovel porridge into my mouth. It was probably unattractive, but I told myself I didn't care what he thought. Once I was done, we made our way to the healing house. Alon told us to stay outside while he went in to talk with the family. He said this as a courtesy because it was already packed with people. There was no way we would all fit. We also weren't sure if the family would accept our help, mostly because we weren't from this village, let alone their calling. I'm sure the elders would have problems with strangers poking their noses into their village's problems. After a few minutes, Alon returned, followed by the same wife and husband Eaton and I met yesterday. Everyone, this is David and Esther Colan. They have accepted our request to help them manage this illness so they can get in front of it. Alon gestured to Mr. Colan, who took a deep breath before speaking. First, we don't know what to say or how to thank you. He placed his arm around his wife while she was brushing away tears. This illness came swiftly and has hit Hatsley hard. As we are the only healers, it has been impossible for us to get in front of it. His eyes shifted to Alon. Alon gave him a slight nod. We're still unsure what the cause is. We found that administering a concussion of herbs and minerals has helped some to regain their strength. However, with just us and our son, we are not able to make enough for the whole village and try to figure out the cause. Alon gestured to Nadav and Hafsa. They both stepped forward and slowly lowered their hoods. Mr. and Mrs. Colan let out a small gasp. Will this be a problem? Alon watched their reactions closely. No, of course not. Mr. Colan placed her hand on her husband's chest. We are more than grateful of your help. I felt my shoulders relax, but I was still confused by Alon's actions. Hafsa, Adira, and Talia, please go with Mr. and Mrs. Kalan. They will teach you how to make the tonic they've been administering. The rest of us will work on making more cots for the villagers so they don't have to lie on the floor. Adira, Hafsa, and I followed Mrs. Kalan to the small room where Eaton and I brought her daughter, Gemma. In the middle was a large table that came to my stomach. Gemma had clearly been moved because now it only contained large bowls and empty jars. The room's walls were filled with shelves containing jars of herbs, plants, and liquids. It was similar to how we kept our remedies in the healing house in Gazmir. Mrs. Kalan created a new batch of the tonic, taking her time in explaining each step thoroughly to us. When she was done, she watched each one of us make our own batch. When she was satisfied with our batches, she left. It didn't take long for me to get lost in the work. It felt good to do something. I was comfortable with it. It reminded me of home and how I would help my mother make different tonics and serums for her patients. The three of us were able to get a system going. Hafsa would collect the replenish and ingredients. I would make the tonic, and Adira would jar it. Mrs. Kalan would occasionally come in to collect the filled jars. So when I heard the door open, I didn't stop assuming it was Mrs. Kalan. "It's you." A small voice made me jump and almost spilled the tonic I was working on. I peered down to see Gemma smiling up at me. Her face had regained most of its color and was no longer covered in sweat. "Are you supposed to be up and walking around?" I asked, narrowing my eyes a little. "It's fine. I feel much better now. Andrus keeps forcing me to drink that disgusting stuff," she grimaced as she stuck out her tongue. Both Hafsa and Adira released small laughs. "My name is Gemma, by the way, and you're the one who saved me." Her bright smile was contagious. I couldn't help but smile in return. "Nice to meet you, Gemma. I'm Talia. Adira and I saw you collapse, and then we brought you to your parents. All I remember is my belly hurting really bad, and then feeling weak, and also being picked up by a giant," she proclaimed, stretching her arms up as high as they could go. I chuckled at her excitement. The door opened again, but this time to Mrs. Kalan, who instantly threw her hands onto her hips. "Gemma Kalan, what are you doing out of bed?" "Mother, I feel better." "Go, before I make Jacob bring you another jar of tonic." "No, anything but that," Gemma's frightened voice carried out of the room as she ran away. Back at the tavern, everyone was going to wash up before dinner. We had all worked ardently and only stopped once for a quick meal. The three of us were able to make enough tonic to provide for each patient. The men were able to assemble 20 cots. It was a great start. Hopefully it would relieve some of the pressure from the colons. I stopped Alon and pulled him to the side before he went upstairs to his room. "There's something that has been bothering me all day. Why did you have Nadav and Hafsa reveal themselves? Weren't you putting them in danger?" He studied me. His eyes seemed almost pleased with my question. After talking with the Kalans, I knew they were desperate for help. I was almost certain they would accept Nadav and Hafsa's help regardless of what they looked like. There was still a chance that they wouldn't, that they would have told their elders who knows what could have happened. Yes, there was still that chance. Was still a chance. Nadav and Hafsa both knew and wanted to help where they could. It was their choice to reveal themselves, not mine. I stood there processing his words. Nadav and Hafsa stopped hiding who they were to help others, no matter the cost to them. A sharp pain wedged its way into my chest. I was living so many lies right now, hiding so much of myself, and I didn't even know who the real me was. Desperate to rid those thoughts from my mind, I asked another question that had been eating away at me. "Is what we're doing even going to make a difference?" "They are only one family. They won't be able to continue to treat the whole village on their own, not without knowing the cause of this illness. They need more help." I had been thinking about it all day. It intensified a resentment in me with how Landor functioned, specifically how the calling seemed to be the root of the issue. The prejudice and refusal to help outside of your calling was infuriating. "You're right, they do need more help." What we did today will help a little, hopefully. The villagers will see how important it is for them to have more healers to protect themselves. That will take years to build up their numbers. You know what the problem is? It's the calling. If there wasn't this strong prejudice between the five, no one would think twice about becoming a healer. The calling is preventing villages from thriving. I knew my words were heresy, but I was so frustrated that all caution had left me. Talia, you need to be careful with what you say. You never know who might be listening. Alon analyzed me with almost a smile in his eyes. We better go get washed up. As I turned to head up the stairs, a door closed.